Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. And so much this wonderfulness. All right. With that, we are going to get ready to hit it, shall we?
Yes. Let's eliminate some debt.
Let's eliminate some debt. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. I know there was a graphic that you wanted to put up.
Yes. So I wanted to share where we are economically and how much debt families have.
Wow. Okay.
So right now, Sarah, what ends up happening is that people are living on their credit cards and they're living in debt. So I don't know who I'm talking to out there, but you're not alone. There are a lot of others in debt. The slide that you're seeing right now talks about the average credit card debt per U.S. household with at least one card is $8,523. This is actually a very old slide. It's from 2002, which was 17 years ago.
Yes.
So when we look at the numbers, and I did a quick Google last week just to get an idea. In 2018, the average U.S. household has $38,000 of credit card debt, not counting their mortgages. This is just credit cards.
So this is outside of mortgages and school loans and anything else.
Yes, this is just credit card debt.
Wow.
The average auto loan size is double that $19,000 number. And so when you're looking at how much people are paying in student loan debt, how much they're paying in auto loans, and how it can affect them in their larger purchases, such as car loans, that's why we want to talk about eliminating some of the debt that families are facing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, Curtis, you could take that slide down. Let's talk a little bit about, but before we do, I want to acknowledge the people in the room. I forgot to do that. So 3 names, you included. Also, Bridget Washington McKinney, welcome. Thank you for being here. Crystal Walton, hello, hello. Etta Akoni, how are you? Sister, thank you for being here. Also,
Carlene,
yes,
hey.
Carlene Jules, Delita Williams Bruley, hello, hello. Anika Royster, hello. Teresa Sands, hello. Angelique Clark, welcome. Shakita Antoine, good to see you. And I already said Carlene. And of course, our esteemed chair, Jerosa Davis, hey. And Rashonda Ray Gaines, thank you for being here. And now that I've said hello to everybody and their mother, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Well, I wanted to say something to what you just said, because earlier today, you know how Facebook always posts memories?
Yes.
It posted a memory from 2011 for me where I met with an 83-year-old client.
Oh.
And she was sharing some wisdom. Mm-hmm. And she actually shared with me that whatever knowledge you know and whatever you're good at, proficient at, you should share with the community. Mm. She said that because we don't share information that we have and we don't share our resources is why we'll lack. She said the universe was built on sharing information. I thought, well, wow, that's exactly what I want to do tonight, is share information that I've learned in over 30 years of banking and how that can help someone else to become debt-free, because that's what it's about.
Well, why is it that you think we don't share information about finances? What is that? We'll share about other things, but for some reason, finances we don't talk about. Why don't we share?
I think it's such a personal matter. And people don't want other people to know their business, for lack of a better word. But I think that we are facing a debt crisis. People are living above their needs. And because they're living above their needs now more than ever, they're putting all of their eggs in one basket and they're living on credit card debt, or, you know, it's that generation of I want this now. And so because I want it now, I'm going to go ahead and get it. It doesn't matter if I have to use a card to do it.
Is it I want this now or I need this now?
Well, there's a difference between wants and needs. And we kind of talked about that the last time we did credit.
Right.
So what ends up happening is that you think a want is a need. But if it's not something that you absolutely need to survive, then it's a want. And that's what you have to ask yourself every time you make a decision. And if that item that you're purchasing is truly a need, then that means I need this to get to work every day. I need this. You know, we do need vehicles, especially here in South Florida. For those of you that join from other parts of the country, you may have better public transportation. But here in South Florida, if you don't have a car, it's very hard to get from point A to point B. So you need a car, but do you really need the car that has a $50,000 car loan? And people, but people have that. Tasha, yes, they do, Sarah. They have that. I see it all the time.
I'm sorry, I just can't fathom something that gets you from A to B and you need to be paying $50,000 to $100,000 for it.
Or $700 to $800, $900 a month.
Oh, that's rent in some places. No.
But that's what people are doing. That's what people are doing.
Wow.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that if you realize that that's not going to get you debt free.
Okay.
You understand? If that's a choice that you're making, but I am assuming that those that are online and watching us tonight want to learn how to get out of debt, how to decrease your balances on your cards, decrease your car loan, not have a car loan, remove your student loans. I mean, it's time to make a difference in your debt. And I think the key to starting that requires several steps. The first is just assessing where you are. Have you written out every single debt that you have to see exactly how much you owe? What's the balance on the card? You know, not just like when is it due? Because a lot of times we just focus on the minimum payment. But how much do I owe? What's the interest rate on it? And right now, all credit card statements say on there, if I make the minimum payment, it will take me this long to get rid of this debt.
70 years.
Right, basically. So you can list the debt, how much you owe, what the balance is, how much the monthly payment is, and also what the interest rate is, because that's sometimes an eye opener. You know, I'm paying this much.
Right.
So like you're buying a $30 shirt at Macy's, but the interest rate is 25-30%. So in essence, how much of that $30 shirt that was on sale cost you? Yeah, might not be worth it.
No,
I know it's not worth it for me.
That's an expensive shirt.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Better to go to the thrift store, apparently.
Yeah. I have no problem with that.
No, I'm a thrift store shopper.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we kind of answered this, but I think I'd like to know a little more specifically from you. Why are we facing debt? Why are we in a debt crisis right now?
Because people are living above their needs. People are living above their need. They're living above their wage. So we're in a constant society of keeping up with the Joneses. So I want a bigger house. I have this house, but it's too small. I need a bigger house. I was having a discussion the other day with a coworker, and we were talking about, he was saying that it's him and 4 other kids grew up in a home, and they were in a 2-bedroom. So it was, you know, him, 4 other children, 5 kids. He said his sisters got the bedroom. They slept on the couch, his brothers, and then his mom and dad had the other room. So in a 2-bedroom, they had 7 people, and they made it. We won't live like that now. We want a bigger house. We want a bigger, you know, everything's got to be bigger, bigger, and bigger, but that comes with bigger debts.
Absolutely.
And that's a difference.
And you know, it's interesting because you look at 2 things. Social media is very responsive, I would think, as somebody who studies and teaches social media. This keeping up with the Joneses has taken on a new phase in terms of keeping up with the Instagram models, etc. So you see somebody, oh, thank God, I just bought a new house. And you see all the congratulations and they go through all the, meanwhile, you don't know what they had to do to get that house, but you see it and you want it and you're trying to keep up. So I think social media bears some of the responsibility for that. But I also think you look at a place like South Florida where there is a lot of building and development going on. They're not building small houses now.
No.
They're building the mega multi-houses, and then you watch things like HGTV, like House Hunters and House Hunters International, and you see them say, well, it's a little small. I'm sorry, this is 2,000 square feet. How is that not enough? So I think that the market has also created an appetite for us to have bigger and better.
And I definitely agree with social media, because sometimes I'll look at, oh, wait a minute, what was I wearing? And I've already posted a picture in that. Oh, now I need a new outfit because somebody's already seen me in this because I posted a picture, you know, and I feel that once you get past that step in your mind, that it doesn't matter if I've worn this. I mean, what was the actress that was in Girls Trip that she wore the same dress? She said, I paid so much money for it.
Yeah, Tiffany Haddish. She wore that white dress 7 times.
Right. And that would be me.
Absolutely.
Y'all saw me on Saturday at the Red Shoe Luncheon in that white outfit. Don't think you're not going to see it again. So Sarah's, be glad and just say, hey, you're wearing that white outfit again.
Exactly. Good white is hard to find too. So when you find it, you wear it again. So, I mean, but you know, in all seriousness, that is one way to think about it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Great. All right. So we're going to continue going on. And let me take a break and say this, that if you are interested in asking any questions, please feel free to put them on the chat. We're joined on social media by the Facebook Live family and the YouTube family. So feel free either in the YouTube chat or in the Facebook Live chat to ask questions or make comments. I will definitely relay them to Michelle, and she can actually read them herself.
Yes.
You know, but so
now that I'm here tonight.
Now that you're here, yeah, you can actually read them. She can read them herself. So we will be taking questions all throughout. Feel free to ask. Also, if you just joined us, my name is Dr. Chatachi Egwu. I am the moderator for this evening, and we are joined by Michelle Edwards-Colley, who is our financial expert tonight, talking about getting out of debt.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about credit score a little bit and debt. How does debt affect your credit score and the ability to make purchases? We were just talking about homes. How does debt affect all of that?
Well, so there's actually two ways that debt can affect your ability to purchase. Number one, lenders, when they're lending to you, look at, especially when it comes to a mortgage, they look at your debt ratio. So how much of your income are you using towards your debt every month? So when they factor in a mortgage payment, they have to actually factor in the debt that you currently carry on monthly credit cards.
Sorry.
All of that. As well as... So there's actually...
Sorry, had to refresh, guys, so the sound came back on. Sorry,
okay,
continue.
Awesome. So we actually look at how does that debt ratio factor in to your mortgage payment. So your mortgage payment plus all your credit card debt, plus any student loan debt and car loan debt, all have to be a certain percentage of your income. So the higher that credit card debt is and the student loan debt and the car loan debt means the lower the mortgage payment can be. It has to be, because the bank is not going to lend you more than a certain percentage of your overall income.
Okay.
So your debt ratio will affect the large purchase as well as your balance to your limit. So the last time that we talked about credit cards, for those of you who may not have joined us, we talked about the fact that when you're balanced to your limit, so if you have $1,000 card, you should really only keep the balance on that card at about $300, which is 30% of that limit.
Okay.
The higher you go above, so if you have a card that's up to the limit, it's going to affect your credit score. When your credit score is lower, then that affects the ability to purchase a home or some of the larger purchases. Even a car, you're going to get a higher interest rate on a car loan, or maybe not even purchase the car because your credit score is too low. So it's important to keep your limit to the balance proportionate, and lenders are looking for you to stay at about 30% of that limit.
Interesting. Now, I do want to ask this. When I notice, okay, when you have a credit score, and I know we're talking about getting out of debt, but this is kind of related. When you have a credit score that's too low, you may be able to get a loan, but like an alternative loan,
Correct.
And then the interest rate is going to be super sky high.
Or you can have a prepayment penalty, or there's other factors that go into that.
Okay. What? I've always wondered what sense that makes, because if you already have a low credit score, this kind of means that something is going on financially. So the fact that I would have to pay so much more
would actually hurt you.
Right. It doesn't seem to make sense. What is the rationale behind that?
Because again, it's keeping up with the Joneses, because I really do want to purchase a home right now. So even if I could just get into this, and then the thought process isn't that I can fix what's happened. Instead, I can actually get this loan, get approved. So let me go ahead and go ahead and purchase, even though it may not be the best loan type for me.
Okay. Fantastic. And say hello to Kelly Allen over on the YouTube side. Welcome.
Hi, Kelly.
Welcome. Yes. Hello. And those of you watching on YouTube, I noticed that there is a little bit of pixelation. So hopefully it will clear up. I think that is a YouTube thing. You are welcome, though, to join us on Facebook Live. Facebook Live is the South Broward Alumnae chapter page. So you're welcome to jump over there if you want a slightly clearer picture. All right. And let's keep going on. Again, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to ask questions. Let me put this out there from Judith Case. Okay, well, Judith Case says this in response to Bridget. I don't think it's wrong, more or less assessing your needs versus wants and whether or not it causes enormous amounts of debt. So I'm guessing she's talking about purchasing and the purchases you choose to make, because we're all grown folk here. So
Bridget's saying, what's wrong with wanting better? So Bridget, definitely, there's nothing wrong with wanting better. It's just a matter of if you're going to go into debt to want that better. So the problem is that some people, as I mentioned before, you might go into a store and purchase something on credit. You're not paying off that balance at the end of the month. So now the item that you purchased that you thought you got a great deal on, you're paying interest on that. So maybe instead of purchasing it at that time, you save towards that purchase.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Does that help a little bit? I think that's what we were talking about.
So basically you're saying if you can live and want to live in your Louboutin shoes and not have a house, then do you, boo. However, you've got to make some choices in terms of, and you know what, I think in terms of doing better, we've been taught by media, we've been taught by social media what doing better is supposed to be. As far as I'm concerned, if you have a job in some place to live, and for you, that's probably doing better. So I think doing better is relative. And we can't use somebody else's measure of what better is for them to make better for you. That's just personally what I think.
And for some people, their income may actually justify Louboutins and a home.
Thank you.
But if you're not, then don't get yourself in debt just to try to do that. That's, I think, where I'm coming from. As far as changing society's thinking about the amount of debt that we are actually using. For $38,000 worth of credit cards is the average U.S. household. That does mean some people have less, but that also means some people have more than that. And I think that's very high.
Even less than that is very high. Anything that's debt to me is high. But I digress. We'll keep going. Angelique Clark asks, is it better to use cash for purchases than to use a credit card for points?
So Angelique, that's a great question. So if you have a card for points, and I'm assuming that means like airline or travel points that you want to be able to use the cards for, it's fine if you're going to go ahead and pay off that card at the end of the month and not carry a balance and pay interest on it. So I know some people that actually purchase cars on their credit card because they want the points to be able to travel on Delta or, you know, an airline card. American Express, I think, has points as well. But some of those cards, it's fine if you're going to pay off the card within a time period. You're going to now discipline yourself. Because I think that's what having debt and being debt free goes back to. It's being disciplined. So sure, I don't have any problem with you using a card for points, but not if you're going to use a card for points and keep that balance for a year. Then that just negated the fact that you got points to travel. So I hope that helped. I think that was Sora Shakita.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that was Angelique Clark.
Oh, Angelique. Okay.
So now Sora Shakita has a question/comment. Wow, they're all coming in.
I see that.
At the same time. So Shakita Antoine says, I agree, and a large amount of people follow a generational cycle of spending as their parents did, living check to check. See, I had to get church today. Check to check. Or for others, they go the opposite extreme. If they were raised on a tight budget, they feel that they shouldn't deny themselves as an adult.
That's correct. And I definitely see that as I'm a certified financial coach. And that means that I sit down with people, I go over their debts with them, go over their budget. And you definitely see that when you start to talk to them, they'll say, well, you know, growing up, I didn't have, and I want to have better for my children. And that's fine. I think that if you understand the parameters of what better is for them and being able to provide for them and maybe not go into debt to do that. And there is a generational cycle of poverty that exists. And poverty is not necessarily being homeless or on the streets. Poverty means that you don't have a savings of 3 to 6 months. It means that you're living paycheck to paycheck. So one paycheck away, you know, unlike what the government seemed to think, because we just went through that government shutdown. And if that didn't teach us that we need to come out of debt, nothing else will, because I know there are people who were struggling. I, saw them face to face trying to figure out how to make ends meet because they had missed several paychecks because of the government shutdown. So we have got to make sure that we start focusing more on being debt free instead of getting just mountains and mountains and you have good credit so you keep getting another credit card.
I think this also, and again, I'm so happy that you're here because I think this also points to the fact that we need to be planning in terms of a side hustle something else, getting our side hustle on, because the days of the good government job, you see what that good government job did to you.
Right.
So I think that we have to look at alternative sources of funding our futures, because if that didn't prove to us that people don't always have our backs, I don't know what will.
Correct.
So absolutely. Yes. Hey, MC Curtis, do you mind? Can you put up the show card real quick and some music? We'll be right back. Hey, and welcome back. Yes, we just took a little bit of break there. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. Wonderful, yet a very critical and important conversation tonight on getting out of debt, how we can get into the debt-free zone. I am joined here by my soror and also a member of the South Broward Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Michelle Edwards-Colley, who is a financial advisor, financial planner, and just an extraordinary financial genius, in my opinion.
And I don't know about all of that, but I do have years of banking experience, and my goal and purpose is to actually help people become debt-free and live with financial freedom, because I know people who lose sleep at night trying to figure out how to pay bills. They're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and that cycle that was discussed, I think Shakita mentioned.
Yes, Shakita Antoine mentioned
that. That cycle and generational poverty or generational paycheck to paycheck is just what happens when we don't focus on some of the things that we keep silent in our communities. And I think that it's important that we do sit down and talk with someone. Maybe if you're having a problem with your budget, or you don't even think you're having a problem, but you're carrying some of this $38,000 average credit card debt that every U.S. household seems to be having, then maybe you do need to sit down and say, what can I do to do things different? And there are various debt reduction strategies. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely, we're going to get to that.
Okay,
absolutely. You're on fire. So I don't want to take too much time. I do want to recognize Juan Negron Martinez. Thank you so much, Juan, for coming in. It's good to see you. Also, Norma. Norma is here. Hey, Sally J, my good friend and a member of the Pink and Green from Richmond, Virginia. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Juan says, hey, Chitachi, just coming in to support. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Robin Beauclair, how are you? And she says, is a card like Amex better to have than a regular credit card that allows one to carry a balance?
And if my mom was here, she would say yes. So my mom, when I first went away to college, she said, you will not get credit cards. You will only have an American Express card. That's what she told me. Now, did I follow it? That's a whole nother story. So when you guys see her, don't say anything to her about that. But yes, an American Express, that they have different types of American Express. So the one that requires you to pay off the balance in full every month is the best type of card to have. That's really not a credit card. That card is because credit cards are meant for revolving debt, but that American Express that you pay off monthly, that means that you're not carrying a balance. You're not paying an interest rate on it. Instead, what you're doing is you actually pay probably like a $50 or $60 annual fee. I'm not sure how much the American Express, how much your fee would be, but you pay an annual fee for having that card. And yes, you don't have a limit on it. You can spend as much as you want, but you have to pay that entire balance off. So that is definitely better.
No limit?
There's no limit. The limit's going to be whatever you know you can pay the next month when the bill comes.
So if you charge $100,000,
yes, you better be prepared to pay $100,000
at the end of the month.
Yeah, when the bill comes. Yes, ma'am.
That's really dangerous.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to let you charge $100 if you don't show that you have, that. Okay. But yeah, there's no limit on that card.
Correct. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So would that not be something that is dangerous for someone? Could it not be tempting?
It could be very tempting, but I would hope that the reason you've gotten that card is because you show the discipline and the restraint that's needed. And you know that bill is going to be due the next month. And I think that's why American Express now has other cards. In the beginning, that was the only card they had.
Okay.
Now they have cards like the Optimal, I think it's called the Blue card, where you can actually pay You pay as you go, just like other, like a Visa and MasterCard, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they do have various cards, but there's one that would just be paid in full every month.
Fantastic. Wow. All right. So
some more questions?
There are some more questions, but we're going to get to them in just a few. I have another question that that we're going to look at. Is there such a thing as good debt?
That's a good question. So I really do believe that there is such a thing as good debt. I believe that getting a mortgage is a good debt.
Okay.
You're building wealth. You're building equity in your home. You now have a tax write-off. So purchasing a home and actually getting a mortgage to do that is a good thing. Student loan debt can also be good debt. Now, the key between student loan debt is getting student loan debt and you're also getting more than what you need. So your tuition balance and everything to go to school is, let's just use a number, $5,000, but you get a student loan for $20,000. And now you take that extra $15,000, you put it in your pocket and you say, oh, well, I need it to live on, but you really didn't need that much. So I don't want someone to get in over their head with student loan debt. The same thing with a mortgage too. There's no need to necessarily, if you know you've got money to be able to put down, then you may want to put down more on that mortgage. I also believe that some business loans, whether to start or grow your business, can also be good forms of debt, because that's going to lead to more income coming in to pay that debt as well as your other bills and build more wealth. So I would say the three forms of good debt that I can think of right now would be a mortgage, student loan debt, as well as, and not all student loan debt. Remember I said keep it in moderation, and then some business loans.
Because I was going to ask you, I actually had this as a question. Years ago, well, is student loan debt still considered student good debt when we have such a crisis? It seems like we have a huge crisis in terms of student loan debt. Is it still good?
It is still good. It's still good if it's in moderation.
Okay.
But I've seen people that are making $30,000, $40,000 a year with $150,000 student loan debt. That's not good student loan debt. But if you are, in medical school, law school, and you've got, your earning potential is greater. Okay. But your earning potential, going to get 3 or 4 master's degrees, and now you have, right. So that's the hard part. You have to be in moderation. I highly suggest that people apply for scholarships, start scouting the internet for various scholarships so that you use more scholarships. If you have children that are going to get ready and they're younger and they're going away to school, the Florida prepaid is open right now, and that you can sign your children up if you have not already done so and lock their tuition prices in now. If you're in the state of Florida, I know other states offer those same type of programs, but you should definitely take a look at making sure that you have some options available to try to reduce the amount of student loan debt that's going to be required either for you or for your child.
Now, you saw it. I took a long, dramatic sip, and that was for a reason. You all know I'm dramatic. I will add to this, as a university professor and as someone who understands the higher education landscape very well, look at what it is. There's always this push to go and, go get your master's, go get your PhD. Everybody does not need a PhD. Everybody does not need a master's. What you need to do is look at what it is you are trying to do and trying to achieve, understand the landscape, and then understand the reasoning. Sometimes I teach graduate classes now, and I'll ask, why are you majoring in communication? Oh, well, I didn't know. Oh, well is a darn expensive way to get yourself into debt. So you need to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And like you said, only take out the amount you need, and then look for assistantships, look for fellowships so that you don't have to pay and that you have remission of tuition. So as a university professor, I'm telling you that. Look and see, do you need a PhD for what you need to do, or do you need a master's for what you want to do? And then work from there. So I'm very passionate about us being in debt unnecessarily. So that's my pet peeve when I see people going for extra education that they don't need only to be paying it back till they die. Especially if you're in the social sciences, Just saying.
And I know I've mentioned this before, but student loan debt is the only type of debt that cannot be included in the bankruptcy.
You see?
So you will pay that from your Social Security if you have not paid your student loan. They will be deducting it from your Social Security check. They don't care how old you are; they're going to get their money.
That is a miserable existence. Wow. Wow. Let's take it to the room now that we've sufficiently depressed everyone. Let's take it to the room. Donna Pratt, is it Donna or Donna? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Pratt McKenzie is enjoying the information.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Erica Collins asks, how do you have a balance between saving for retirement and enjoying life comfortably? That's an excellent question.
That is. And I think that, Erica, I would say that you do have to save for retirement, but you also need to enjoy life. So there has to be a balance as far as your budgeting. And I don't really call budgeting. I actually call it savings plan. I tend to use that word, but it's really a spending plan. How am I going to spend my money? How am I going to save? How much am I going to save? I recommend saving for retirement off the top to make sure that, that comes out of your pre-tax income. If you're able to, a 401k is what I would recommend. And then you budget and have your spending plan based on everything else that's left. So that would be my recommendation when it comes to saving for retirement and then still living comfortably. Because I know people that never get to retirement. So I don't believe in not, but then that's another thing that I think has led to the debt crisis is YOLO. Like you only live once. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, so I'm going to live life. And I get that too. But I just don't want to see everybody put $38,000 in credit cards and walk around where you're constantly borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And that just makes life very hard.
Makes it miserable.
There's ways to live comfortably. You've got Groupon and I wrote down some apps earlier that we can budget, use Mint and NerdWallet and Digit, and there's so many other tools, financial tools. Check in your app store and see what would be available to you to use just on your phone to track your spending and track how much money you're using and for what.
Absolutely.
Many of the banks have their own online, and you can just click on a little and it'll make a pie chart for you. You spent this much in groceries. It automatically levies or shows you exactly how much you're spending and where. So, use some of the technology that's available to try and track exactly where you're spending your money. And that may be a way to live more comfortably. If you like to travel, then look for travel deals and do things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, and there are a lot of great ways that you can save in terms of that. Instead of going to stay in that expensive hotel, you can do an Airbnb, which is a lot cheaper, and do things like that. So, I actually have a friend who is traveling on Airbnb's dime. She actually lives in Bogota, Colombia right now. Medellin. She lives in Medellin right now. Wow. And that's an Airbnb thing. So she's been able to travel, and now she's in Medellin, and it's on Airbnb's dime. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. And as you were mentioning apps, I know that we were talking before about the side hustle thing. There are apps that you can use if you have junk that you're trying to get rid of because you want to travel, things like Let Go, things like Offer Up, things like Craigslist.
A client of mine just actually told me about a new one. Let me see if I can find it. Poshmark.
I got a Poshmark store. I got a Poshmark store.
So, yeah.
And the interesting thing is I ended up, I had some stuff in my phone. I'm like, why is this here? I'm not using it. I'm going to put it on Poshmark. The first day I sold stuff. So, it's really take a look at what you have. Also.
My 18-year-old daughter sells on eBay.
You see?
Yeah. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to take a picture, post it on eBay. And she goes, Mommy, I sold something. Now, how do I go and mail this off? So, if we're not doing things like that, we have to sit down and figure out ways to increase our income. So that's how you decrease your debt. Debt reduction comes from you stop using the cards or decrease of use of the cards and increase of income. And I suggest you do both of them to try to help you to get out of debt.
Absolutely. Also Ingrid Bazin. Hey, how are you, Ingrid? From the B-side. Yes, thank you so much for being here. Ingrid said, witches are getting so much. Airbnb
Yes.
doesn't give points. They don't, but you also won't be in debt with $1,000 hotel room. Just saying.
Reward programs. Yes, they do.
Yes.
They do. You have to be diligent with using the same rewards. Like I know people that that they travel a lot, and so they always stay in embassy suites, or they pick like one particular, you know, whether it be the Hyatt or Hilton or whatever that the chain is, that they're going to always stay in so they can get reward points and free nights.
Same thing with flying. I tend to fly JetBlue and Southwest all the time. So I have taken so many free rides because I did pay for a certain amount before I got to that point, and then I was able to fly places for free. So it's really helpful. You could save up your points that way, and that there are some cards, I don't know if Amex does it, but some cards give you those airline points.
Correct.
So if you're able to be disciplined and diligent, that's another way to do that.
Yes.
Ebony Lamar, hey, Ebony, how are you? Says, I think Wells Fargo is offering the same feature to track your spending.
Yes. And I believe Bank of America does as well.
Absolutely. Crystal Walton, the third. Yes, that's interesting. Crystal Walton, the third, says, we'll get those apps. Thanks. Absolutely. Adrian Williams, hello, Soror, says, the best strategy is to make the decision to cut up credit cards so you will not be tempted to spend. One credit card with a zero balance can be used to rent cars and should be paid off within 30 days. Another strategy is to target one bill at a time and pay extra to one bill and then move on to the next bill after the first one is paid off.
Yeah, that's called a snowball.
Snowball. Okay. Making the decision to start using cash will help you to end adding to your debt. Using a tax refund check can help you to pay off one of your bills. I just feel like I had a sermon in church. Thank you very much, Adrian Williams. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And we're going to actually talk about some of those, the snowball, debt reduction, the avalanche, debt consolidation. So those are different ways that you can, get rid of debt. Do you want me to get into that now?
Yeah, let me just make one question.
Oh, wait, here's a question.
Tawanda Seabrook. She asks, how do you get your student loans when paid in full to say paid in full on your credit report?
Oh, that's a good question. It should be reporting paid in full on your credit report if they are. So maybe contact the student loan provider and find out exactly why they're not reporting it that way. You can do a dispute. So if you pull your credit report, and we talked about this the last time, Tawanda, was that if you go on annualcreditreport.com, you can pull all three bureaus. You can see exactly how it reports, and you can dispute it directly through there. So once you talk with the student loan provider, if they're telling you, well, yes, it should be showing, you can go in and dispute it on Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, depending on which report is actually reporting it incorrectly. Dispute and say this account has been paid in full, and it should be reflected that way. And you can dispute it directly through annualcreditreport.com, not free credit report, but annualcreditreport.com. You're allowed to pull it once a year to see exactly what's on your credit. You do not have to pay for it. You will not have to put in a credit card. If you go on a site and they're asking for your credit card to pull your credit, come off of it and look for annualcreditreport.com.
Annualcreditreport.com.
Yes.
Good information. Before we go on, let's take a little break to introduce ourselves. I know some people have joined both rooms on YouTube. Hello, YouTube family, and on Facebook Live. I'm Chitachi Egwu, member of the South Broward Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am tonight's moderator, and I'm joined by our illustrious guest, also a member of the South Broward Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. This is Michelle Edwards-Colley. She is the financial guru for this evening, and please feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we go on, I do want to get this question from Crystal Walton III. If you have student loan debt, should you pay that off instead of saving?
That's a good question. It all depends. So some student loan debt are it's still tax deductible. It depends on how long you've been out of school. It also depends on if you're on a debt reduction payment plan with student loans. So I would have to, maybe we can post that question and discuss it offline. Meaning, like, if you send me a direct message. We can talk about it, Crystal, because it depends on your individual situation. So for example, if somebody has been out of school for a long time and you're just basically making the minimum payment on your student loan, it's going to take you a lot longer. But I do believe that you should have 3 months emergency savings as well, at least 3 months, 3 to 6 months. So I don't think you should work on paying off your student loan debt if you don't have savings. So I don't want you to send extra to your student loan debt and you have nothing to fall back on, that if something happened to your job or you got hurt and you don't have income coming in every single month, you can't even pay, because the student loan is going to still have that monthly payment due. So let's say you've added extra, it's only going towards the principal. It's not saying, well, you don't have a payment in 6 months. But if you lose your job or something happens to your job, now you're still responsible for that payment the very next month. So I do believe that you have to save and not necessarily put extra on your student loan until you have that savings.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Curleen Jules says, I personally used Let Go and sold her stuff right away.
Yes.
See? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. These things work. So let's get on. We'll take some more questions a little bit later. Okay. We have about 15 minutes left.
Oh, wow. Where'd the time go?
It's gone fast, right? It's gone really quickly. And you all have made it go really quickly with your great questions. So let's talk about steps. Mm-hmm. I think you talked about this, but I don't know if you want to refine or add.
It was only like one of the steps.
Okay, so let's talk about steps that a person should use to reduce their debt.
Okay, so I mentioned the very first step, which is assessing where you are. You cannot solve the problem until you know what the problem is. And it may not even be a problem. You might be thinking you're in a lot more debt than you are. You also might not think you're in as much debt as you are. But until you make a list and actually do an assessment of how much you owe. We talked about having a list of what the balance is, what's the interest rate, what's the monthly payment on that debt. Then you're going to have to do exactly what I believe Adrian said, which was stop using the cards, because you cannot get out of debt if you keep adding to that balance every month. You've got to stop using the cards. Maybe pick one particular card that you're going to use if you need to rent a car. It has available balance, because it is harder to rent a car with a debit card. I'm aware of that. But if, or for an emergency situation, there's been a death in the family, you need to travel and you need to use a card to do so. But stop using the cards on day-to-day purchases. And then the next step is to determine a spending plan. So determine exactly how much you have to use every single month, your after-pay income, and then how much you're going to allocate towards. And notice I said the word allocate. How much you're going to spend. I like to get my hair done. I like to get my nails done. How much is that going to cost me? Okay, that's $30 every 2 weeks for my nails. So that's $60 a month. I break it down, everything, my dry cleaning, everything that I have to spend, my stockings for church, all of that, because it adds up.
You still wear stockings
I have
church?
to wear stockings at church. I know.
I'm sorry. That's so off the top. Oh, yes. You're old school.
I am. You see all this gray hair? That's why.
Wow.
Don't worry. Okay. It comes with wisdom, right?
Okay, there you go.
But
there you go.
Not all the time, but I do wear stockings all the time. Anyway, even Curtis is laughing.
I know, right? Curtis couldn't even. In South Florida, in 90-degree weather, this woman wears stockings to church.
Every now and then. But I mean that even something as minute as that I have on my budget. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
All right. But then from there, it's okay. It's no problem. It's okay. I know I'm joined by some people, y'all out there with me, conservative.
Put down that 50 cents for your stockings now.
It's not 50 cents. That's the whole problem.
Well, I don't wear stockings, so clearly I don't.
It depending on the brand you wear, they can be $7 to $10. For Hanes, yes.
Go stockingless. Save that money.
And then I only seem to get one wear. So I have like a $30 stocking budget to make sure. Yeah, to make sure.
So that's serious, because if that's something that which for you is not necessarily a want, I could argue.
It is a want.
It's a want.
It's a preference.
It's a preference. There you go. There you go. But you have a budget for that.
Right. I have a line item. Just like how you have a line item. I think of our spending plan or our budget as a line item, just like you would a business.
Okay.
So you've got to run your family income as a business the same way.
Okay.
So what are the line items? Determine exactly what you're spending on. And I'm not saying to eliminate things, but look at where you can change, what you can tweak. A lot of times my job offers discount movie tickets. So at the bank, we can get tickets for $7 to AMC or Regal. So, but you have to buy in advance. So I might buy 10 tickets, because for a family of 4, for us to go to the movies and eat popcorn, everything else, you're looking at $50, $60. regular price. So if I get the 4 tickets at $7 each, and it's good for daytime or evening time, then that's $28. And now I try to find coupons, or maybe we eat before we go. So we're not eating, might just get one popcorn for all of us to share. Just to try to still enjoy. No. Try to still enjoy. I'm not telling them to do that.
I know, right?
Still
don't do what I do.
We could still enjoy going to the movies, but at a lesser expense. So what benefits does your company maybe offer? I found out the other day we have discount Disney tickets, we have discount SeaWorld tickets. So, I'm like, I need to go on that website, but you have to plan. It's planning. A lot of times what ends up happening with us is that we don't plan. So that's where spending plan comes into play. And the last step is determining a debt reduction method. So some of the methods that we talked about were, she had mentioned a snowball.
Right.
So we're going to talk about those. We'll talk about it in a little bit, the debt reduction methods. But really and truly, the steps are making a list of assessment, exactly where you are, stop using the cards, and determine a spending plan. And then once you determine your spending plan, figure out which debt reduction method you're going to use. And there are 4 different ones that I can think of that we can use to get rid of debt.
Well, why don't, we don't have so much time left.
Okay.
Why don't we talk about those things now? Go ahead.
So the first one would be the debt snowball, which is that you take the lowest balance. So you write out your list of bills. Remember that list we did at the beginning where we assessed?
Yes.
So let's say you have a $400 card and it's got a $25 minimum payment. You might have another card that's $1,500 balance, another card that's $2,000 balance, maybe 2 of them at $2,000 each, just to use an example. So there's 4 cards. You pay off, when you look at your spending plan, you have $50 left over every month that you can use towards, and that's what's still saving. You got to pay yourself first. Okay. Always pay yourself first. That's with the amount that Eric and I talked about with putting money in retirement, all of those things. So you've got $50 left over. You take that $50 and you send now the regular $25 that you would have sent on that $400 card, and you send an extra $50. So now you're sending $75. So in about 3 months, that $400 card is paid off. So now the other cards, you've just been paying the minimum on them. You take the second highest balance card, which would be the $1,000 card, and you start sending $75 plus the minimum payment that was required on that one. So let's say the minimum payment on that was $50. So now you're sending $125 on that $1,000 card. So in about 9 months, you're getting rid of that card. And you keep doing that. So you can actually assess, and there's apps to help you do this. You can actually assess when you will be debt free. The key to this is that, and it's called a snowball because that amount that you're sending extra every month ends up getting bigger and bigger. So it creates a bigger snowball. So in the end, you have all the amounts that you were sending, the $25 to one and $75 to the next one and $150, all of that starts adding up so that the largest amount of debt, you're getting rid of it much quicker. The key, this is not something that happens overnight. Okay. And I remind you that you didn't create this debt overnight. So don't think it's just going to go away like this. And that's what I think a lot of people want. They want it to just go away, but you've got to face it head on and understand that you probably took several years to create the debt. So you're going to take a year or 2 or 3 to get out of it, depending on how much debt you have. The debt avalanche is, I know that's a little Jamaican in me. The debt avalanche.
Avalanche.
An avalanche. The debt avalanche.
It's also British. Yeah.
Exactly. Is that you actually look at the interest rate on various cards. And so that particular method says to use the highest interest rate card and pay that one down so that you're reducing the amount. You're going with you're keeping the longest one that you would have left at the end is your lowest interest rate card, because the method of that particular reduction plan is that you're getting rid of your highest interest debt first. Okay. The one that you're paying the most interest on. Okay. The snowball is more for people who need to see that I'm getting somewhere, because your highest interest rate debt may not be the lowest card. Okay. So you might not see a dent right away. Okay. But if you're focused on not paying as much interest, then that might be a better method. And then the third is to do a debt consolidation loan. So that's where you take your older debts and you may put them into one new lower interest. So some people might get a 0 interest card, and that's where you hear people moving their cards from card to card so that they can keep, they're getting offers, interest, right? Yeah. 0 interest for a year, 0 interest for 6 months. So that's, a debt, or they might get a debt consolidation loan from their credit union where they're putting everything in one. The key to that one is once that you've moved the older debts to the now new debt, what I've seen people do is they still go run back up those cards. So they use the cards again, and thus putting themselves in a worse situation, because now you have $30,000 that you've moved to one card, and you still have 30,000 now. And then you go out and use those cards again. So now you've got $60,000 worth of debt. So the key in correct, it's doubled, because now you're using the old cards, and you've still got the new debt that you just created by consolidating the old cards.
Wow.
So that's there's good and bad and everything, but you've got to figure out which one works with your discipline and your financial tendencies. Everybody's different. I can only tell you what the methods are, and then you can choose which one works for you. The fourth one, which if you're running into you're paying late fees, you're not paying the cards on time, you're past due on the cards, then some people reach out to nonprofit companies who offer a debt management plan.
Okay.
So that's where the nonprofit actually may call Citibank, who you owe, you have a card with, and they'll say, "Hi, Mr. Citibank, Michelle's having a problem with this card," and they would drop the interest rate for them.
Okay.
And then you make the payment, one payment to the debt management company, and then
they disseminate it.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
So that can work for some people. However, please know that some lenders recognize that type of debt management plan as a form of bankruptcy. So even though you have not filed with the courts, some lenders will view that, or could view that, as going into that debt management plan. That should be one of your last resorts. If you're not past due on cards, you should not go into that plan.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Besaida Cesar said, "I just arrived. I have a question. Should you close unused cards or let it close on its own?"
Oh, look at that. That's a great question.
Great question.
So, no, you should not close an unused card, because I'll tell you that, and this is something we talked about in the last session, your credit score rather is based on several factors. It is based on how much you owe per card, but it's also based on the card you've had the longest. So you may not be using a card, but that may be one of the older cards on your credit report. And so closing that card, and even if it's closed by account owner, which is how it will reflect on your credit, it could still drop your score, because that could have been your oldest card. So let's say I had a card from college, but I'm not using it anymore. And that, it's been 20 years I've had that card. That card of being on my credit report, paid on time for all those years, is helping my score much more than if I close it. If I close it, I could see my score drop. And there are credit score simulators that you can go and see, if I close this, what will happen to my score. I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, that was that was an excellent question. Thank you so much. Let's see.
Dr.
Carlene
Trelawney
always says, always pay yourself first.
Yes.
Dr. McMath, hello, Soror. How are you? Yes, she just talked about the snowball effect.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And let's see. Delphine Blanchard says, ticketsatwork.com is a great place. Broadway tickets, $20 cheaper.
Let me write that down.
Write it down, folks. Ticketsatwork.com. Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you, Delphine. Let's see. Ebony Lamar also says, thanks for that info. That was really critical info. So we only have a few minutes left. So I want to go ahead and let's see. You talked about debt consolidation loans. Do you recommend doing that?
I think that if you know you're not going to use the cards again, then yes. But I've seen many people do the debt consolidation loan and then still end up with more debt than they had before. So not necessarily I would recommend it. Just like those debt consolidation services. You may have seen the commercials where they're like, I'm drowning in debt. It all depends on what that drowning in debt looks like to you. And so I don't believe in paying late fees, additional interest, over the limit fees. So that's what that really looks like. You're way in over your head. And when you look at that spending plan, you just cannot make the ends meet. There's no way you can make extra income, maybe babysitting, selling dinners. I mean, there's so many ways to make extra income. We talked about Poshmark and OfferUp.
Selling stuff.
That white jumpsuit may go on there, because then I can buy another white something so that I'm not see there you go. So that they won't see me in the same white outfit from the Red Shoe Luncheon on Saturday.
There you go. You might be able to get something on OfferUp. That's a good.
Yes. So my son actually just made a recommendation. He said that instead of eating out so much, maybe we need to cook more at home, because when you cook, then you're not using your cards to eat out. So maybe when you look at your spending plan, you can see that you're spending a lot of money on eating out. So there might be 3 or 4 days, and it's not about definitely eliminating. And remember how we talked, Bridget was saying, what's not, what's bad with wanting better.
Right.
But yeah, we want to be able to go out to eat, but maybe you don't go out to eat every night. Maybe you only go out to eat 3 or 4 nights out the week, or 2 nights or 1 night, depending on where you need to cut back. Instead of going out to eat, imagine using your card for a $50 or $75 dinner and you're paying 25% for that. So you just borrowed money to eat that night, versus that same $75 could be groceries for, I don't know, depending on the size of your family. For us, that's about a week. So I use a lot of coupons too. I know my daughter's watching, and she'll tell you in a minute that mommy uses coupons.
And see, we're trying to shush him, and he had the best
he
piece of
did
information
have some
this
good
night.
advice.
See, he really did. He really did. I have one other question for you, because it's 9 o'clock, but it's gone so fast, ladies and gentlemen, but I do want to get this in. Do you recommend bankruptcy for somebody who just has an overwhelming amount of debt?
I think bankruptcy has to be an extreme last resort. Because you do have to come back from that. You do have to reestablish your debt. Now bankruptcy actually requires you to go through counseling before and after, before you can come out of bankruptcy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you have an entrance interview and an exit interview. Oh,
yeah, you have to go through, because they found too many people were doing bankruptcy several times.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it needs to be a last resort. I'm not saying that you should not do bankruptcy. I'm just saying that when you consult a lawyer, because you do pay for doing the bankruptcy, but you need to look at what debts do you have, and use some of these other methods first to see if there's any way to possibly avoid bankruptcy. Because once you do the bankruptcy, yes, you can have a clean slate and start over, but you do, they're telling us time, right?
No, that's just a notification, so don't even worry about it.
So, it depends on how much is overwhelming. It may feel overwhelming to you, but maybe some of these steps we talked about in today's workshop can assist you. And I would suggest there are a lot of nonprofits in the area, maybe in the state that you're from, Google it. Nonprofit housing counseling, nonprofits that offer financial capability services. Maybe check with your local United Way. And there are centers that you can sit down for free and meet with somebody and come up with options that can help you before you take the route of bankruptcy.
Fantastic. Well, that's it. We've exhausted our 1 hour. It was a great 1 hour.
Yes,
a great way to spend a Monday evening, right?
Yes.
I love this.
So I wanted to make sure that we talk about, so this has been a series. For those of you who joined us the last time, we did the credit cards and how to eliminate credit card debt, and what was your credit score. And we talked a lot about credit. And this is the second in the series, which was becoming debt free.
Yes.
And then our third event that the Economic Development Committee is hosting will be an in-person event on April 13th. And it's our financial fortitude workshop. And it's going to be held, if you're here locally in the South Florida area, it will be held at the Martin Luther King Center in Hollywood, Florida. Please check our Facebook page to get more information and find the flyer and register. It is a free event, and we'll have information from home buying to foreclosure assistance. And some of these same topics that we talked about, we'll go more in depth in person.
Fantastic. And let me tell you, that's not the only great event that we have going on. The South Broward Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has so many fantastic events. It's like every week I'm like, wow, we have another event, because we have so many great things. So I invite you to, don't worry about that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I invite you to go to our website, dstsouthbroward.org. Again, dstsouthbroward.org, and you're going to be able to see all the fantastic events that we have going on. In addition to this, we have a bunch of other events that are going on all the way through the rest of the year.
Yes.
So check out our website and check out our social media as well.
Yes, our Facebook page.
You're on Facebook now. So our Facebook page, we're also on the gram, Instagram.
Yes.
And we are also on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, so check out our social media and you can get all, in fact, if you go to our website, our Twitter feed is right on there. So you get up to the minute information about what we're doing. Now, we're not done yet.
Okay.
Because I have a code word.
Oh, yes.
For those of you that are members of the South Broward Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody in the house is saying that. You have a code word to show that we're so glad you watched tonight. And to show that you watched tonight, you've got to prove it. Your code word is D-free. Capital D, a dash, and then free. F-R-E-E. So you're going to email that code word to SBAC Economic Dev. So SBAC, the word economic, and DEV at gmail.com. Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Well, let me thank once again all of you in Facebook Live land and on YouTube for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you. Technology is wonderful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Let's thank our illustrious co-host. Yes. You're a guest, but you're the co-host, Michelle Edwards-Colley, who is our financial person tonight. Let's thank the person coughing in the background. That would be MC Curtis. Curtis Brooks from Curtis Brooks Media Productions. And they can't hear you? Oh, well, great. Anyway, I just let them know he was coughing, but they can't hear you. And her son is waving, so she's saying goodbye. So once again, thank you so much for joining. We can't wait to see you. We will have I know we have another live stream coming up May 9th, so look out for that. In addition to our other physical in-person events, we've got another live stream coming up. So go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you to all of you for joining.
Absolutely.
And asking great questions tonight. My prayer for each of you is that you become debt-free. Today starts a new journey. And if you just take the steps, take the time to sit down and look at it. A lot of times we don't take the time to sit down and assess where we are. So if you start there, I promise you, the next time that we come live, I'll be hearing some testimonies.
Absolutely. Start where you are. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.